What's up, guys? We are here at the Mustang Stampede, waiting to see that thing get unveiled, and we're gonna be following them. We're gonna be leaving in about an hour, and then once we're able to follow the convoy out, we can actually see that thing unwrapped. So I'll catch up with you guys once we get to see it. And we are back in the garage, and so let's go ahead and talk about the new Mustang. So first thing that I want to talk about is the most exciting part of the new Mustang, which would be the new Dark Horse model, which is the first model, new performance model in over 20 years for a Mustang. So think of it as the replacement for the Mach 1, or like the Bullet, for example. That one's really cool because it has the most changes compared to an S550 like what my 350R is. So the biggest thing is going to be obviously the new front end. It's got a much more angular, much more aggressive design, and the tweaks on the Dark Horse just make it look a little bit better in my opinion than say the regular GT. You also get the most changed 5-liter Coyote. That's the one where you get dual air intakes, dual throttle bodies, and Ford saying that they're trying to get 500 horsepower out of it. They didn't give us official power numbers while I was there, but they're saying they're trying to get 500 horsepower out of it, which is awesome. A 500 horsepower naturally aspirated engine. It's basically 100 horsepower per liter. That's pretty sweet. Then as you work your way towards the back, you'll also see with the new tires, there are brand new tires that are not even out yet on that car. They're Pirelli Trofeo RS tires. And that's pretty awesome, as well as seeing the gigantic brakes the car has. So it should be a pretty serious performer, just again, like the Mach 1 or like a regular GT350. And when you come to the back, that's where you see, you get a different spoiler on the Dark Horse. You don't get any Mustang badges. There's no GT, it's just Dark Horse badges all over the car. And then you can see the new angular taillights, where it's, again, everything on the car is a bit sharper, a bit more angular, a bit more aggressive, not as rounded as an S550 is. And again, in the back, you can see the much larger exhaust tips, as well as the more aggressive rear diffuser, and you get a lot of rear diffuser and cooling aspects from the 350 and 350R on that car as well. As far as interior goes, we didn't get to see the interior of the new Dark Horse. They kind of kept that under wraps. The windows were actually completely black, so they didn't want you to see into the car. But I would assume you're looking at things probably like standard Recaros, or Recaros as an option, as well as more suede throughout the interior on the shifter, the steering wheel, things like that. And speaking of the shifter, the Dark Horse is the only new Mustang model that gets the Tremec transmission, just like what's in the Shelby and what's in the Mach 1. If you get a regular GT, you don't get the Tremec transmission, you still get the MT82. So if you were hoping for the new GT to finally get rid of that MT82 and get into a Tremec, it's not going to happen. You have to go for the Dark Horse model. Now, as far as the regular GT goes, again, you get the changes on the exterior, the new bumper, new hood, new rear design, and that 5-liter engine in that model makes 480 horsepower. And again, you can have it with a 6-speed manual or a 10-speed automatic. And one of the cool things was they co-developed the car with Von Gittin Jr. So as soon as they said that, I knew something was going to be happening with drifting. And there is now a new electronic handbrake. So you can just kind of rip it up and make some drifts. If you want to slide into some parking lot poles, then there you go. They didn't mention a whole lot of major changes from like chassis wise and suspension wise from the previous S550 GT to the new one. Just subtle tweaks, I'm assuming, because again, they didn't go into much detail about it. Just now the GT will make 480 horsepower versus the 450, I believe it has been, and basically the same output as what the Mach 1 was. The biggest change, I'd say, is really going to be in the interior. So now you get a much more modern interior. You get a flat bottom steering wheel. You get very large screens on the inside. And gone now is the traditional double hump that you used to get, let's say the S550 and almost every other generation. That's no longer there on the interior. There are a few spots where it looks identical to the S550 on the inside. If you look at the door panel of like say this car and then look at the door panel of say the new 2024 Mustang, you can see that there's a lot of carryover there, especially in the center console. The shifter from the regular GT is identical to the shifter in the previous generation GT. The center console, where the cup holders are, how they look, the center console lid, all looks very identical. Now there's just a lot more soft touch materials in that car to where, you know, things are a bit more padded, look a little bit nicer. And then as you come up to the dash, that's where the major changes in the interior are. Because again, the seats are still relatively the same design, whether you get the Recaros or the regular GT seats. They do have a couple of new colors on the interior with that kind of like whitish gray as well as the red. Again, the biggest change is going to be those much larger screens, which allow you for a lot of different customization for exhaust modes, suspension modes, traction control settings, and things like that. And one of the cool things is the main gauge cluster. Obviously, you have different modes you can have it in, but then there's also a new Fox body mode that will let you have the gauge cluster of a Fox body, which is pretty cool. So at night, you know, they kind of light up green. So if you are super into Fox bodies, but you want a newer generation car, there you go. Just put it into Fox body mode and you can pretend you're driving a Fox body that just has a much nicer interior. They also did do some changes for the EcoBoost model. It's supposed to be a very heavily revised, all new 2.3 liter in the EcoBoost, and they made a couple of points of pointing out the fact that the bumper and the hood are very different from a GT. That way it's more distinguishable, I guess to make certain GT owners feel better about themselves. But I gotta be honest with you guys, I didn't really look at that car, so I don't really have a whole lot of stuff to show you guys on that one. Mainly the big new thing was Dark Horse, because again, it's a new model name, as well as that's the one that has the biggest changes compared to the previous generation car. They didn't announce pricing or anything like that. They didn't give us a baseline. I'm assuming it's gonna be very close to what it is now. You know, I don't think the car is gonna jump up 10 to 15 grand in price, so don't be worried about that. Now, let's talk about some of the things that maybe are a little bit of a disappointment. Now, I'm sure some of you guys, looks are subjective, but I will tell you in person, the car looks a lot better than in pictures, especially the Dark Horse model with that new, I believe it's called Amber Gray. It is a gorgeous color. In person, the car looks a lot better. A couple of the downsides, they say all new. It really isn't all new. I mean, the roofline, for example, looks identical to this car. Right, I mean, like identical. It's basically on the same chassis again, just a little bit revised. And like we talked about earlier, there's a few carryover pieces in the interior, so it's not all new. You know, it's not like when Chevy went from the 5th gen Camaro to the 6th gen Camaro, where it was on a completely new chassis. They didn't share any parts, and it was, you know, 200 pounds lighter than the equivalent previous gen car. This is not that drastic of a change. It's just a very aggressive, let's call it a facelift, if you will. It's so some people, that was a little disappointing to just not see that it's a crazy all new car. And again, another little disappointment is you would think with all the complaints about the MT82 that they finally would have let you have the Tremec transmission in the regular GT, but they didn't, which, you know, is just kind of odd because they're really the only ones that do that have different transmissions for their V8 models. If you get anything with the V8 in the Camaro, you get the Tremec transmission. Doesn't matter which one, it doesn't matter which V8 you get, you're getting the Tremec. So that would have been cool to see. But again, overall, very cool. Huge thanks to Ford for letting me, for letting me go out there and actually see the car at the unveiling. Very awesome. They also announced a bunch of different like racing versions, GT3, GT4. They're gonna have their own class of Mustang spec racing. So that's gonna be pretty cool if you're into that. Overall, guys, what do you think about the car? Do you think, do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you care? Just so you guys know, at the moment, I don't plan on buying one. It wasn't that big of a change for me to be like, dang, I really want it. Like I said, the Dark Horse model is awesome. And for me, if you have a S550, that's the one you should buy. If you have a regular GT now, going to the new gen GT doesn't make as much sense to me as you going from what you have to a Dark Horse. And again, personally, that's the one that just looks the best. Again, it has the most potential because now you've got dual throttle bodies. You're able to take in more air. And as we know, more air and more fuel equals more power. So there you go. So anyways, guys, like I said, just wanted to give you guys an overview of my opinion and my thoughts on the car. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure to click that bell notification so you get notified for more videos. whether it's on things like Mustangs or the off-road guys that are just outside. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.